Welcome back, Payne County, Oklahoma. Father Brian O'Brien here. We're here part 2. This is a 2-part episode where I'm interviewing my dad, Marty O'Brien. Oh, yeah. He's here in Stillwater visiting and just hanging out for a couple days. And so we were like, we got to do this. We got to get him on the pod, get him on the radio. Anyway, so if you didn't listen to last week's, stop what you're doing and go back and listen to last week's, which was part one. So this is part 2. So we ended last week talking about he had met my mom and proposed to her. Tell us about your wedding day? Were you excited, nervous?
Oh, well, I really shouldn't even repeat that because I was really nervous.
What was nervous about? This is helpful. Lots of people listen to this who are getting married, you know?
I'm not sure that I can package up the emotions. There was no question that this was the woman of my life.
Yep,
and I was right, and
Yep.
it certainly has turned out that way. But was I ready? I mean, I just kept thinking of myself as, you're going to be married, and you might even have children. What? Are you prepared? Are you going to be any good at this? Anyway, it's that kind of really nervous, saw this beautiful creature walking down the aisle with her dad. And then it just all passed. And
you were glad it's over? Glad it was over?
Yeah. I mean, we had a really first-class wedding at the Sheraton in Boston.
Oh, really? Is that where your reception? Yeah. Was that the Sheraton?
Yeah. I don't know how many people, but it was a ton.
Well, you knew a lot of people. She knew a lot of people.
Yeah, I think when the invitation list was made out, it was 80-20. 80%
80% lodges.
Lodges, yeah. And the rest some ragged O'Briens.
And then where did you live when you first got married?
We had a little apartment not far from where she grew up. In fact, the joke is that she said, I found us an apartment. And I said, okay, show me. And so rather than driving directly to it, she drove all around here and then back over here so that it was only about 3/4 of a mile from her family's house, but we must have driven 3 or 4 miles.
She didn't want
and I didn't know the area that well.
Tricky.
Yeah. It took me a month or so to figure out how close her family really was, and we only lived there for about a year. In the meantime, I got the job with Shell, and we moved to Cape Cod. Strangely enough, back to the scene of the crime.
Back to the scene, yeah.
And we lived there for 2.5 years. We had 2 children there.
Yep.
And then I got my first, that was a real assignment. Then I got a nice assignment in upstate New York, which is when
that's where the rest of us came along.
In Syracuse. Then she had her brain surgery.
Yeah, tell us about that. So I don't know that I've talked about it, but my mom, when I was little, I was 6 months old, 9 months old. She had. My mom had a brain tumor.
Yeah.
What was that? Yeah. How did you find that out?
Well, I was away on a trip, and she called and said that she had been getting her hair done or something and just became paralyzed for a very short period of time. So then we said, okay. Then when I came back home, started, going through the varying doctors, and they said that there was a pretty good-sized malformation in her head. And
arterial venous malformation.
And Dr. Newman said, we need to operate. And I looked at my calendar as I said, well, I'm free in about a month. And he said, no, we're talking about the next couple of days. the result of that was, which makes Peggy even more incredible, is that it left her left side in some level of paralysis. The arm doesn't move quite right. And
Still to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's gotten progressively worse. But after being in the hospital for several months, few months anyway, she came home and she just took over the 5 kids again. My mother was there. She was our lifesaver at the moment. And then she's lived this.
Yeah.
Where even now that she is, pretty much on a walker, you don't even think about it. She just does everything.
Yeah. But it took so she had basically brain surgery, whatever that was, 13-hour brain surgery with 5 kids
Right.
under 8. Right?
I'm not even sure anybody was.
I was a baby.
Yeah.
I think Marty. Yeah, maybe 5 kids under 7.
Something close.
That's scary stuff.
Yeah.
That's scary stuff.
Yeah.
So cool things. Your mom came and lived. That's just like the extended family pitching in. What was your that could have gone south. That brain surgery in 1976.
The doctor was talking about that she could never walk again. She wouldn't be able to do this. It may affect her speech, which I can guarantee it did not. And she just eventually just got to the point where my mother was, she was ready to go to home anyway.
Sure.
And then it just became natural.
I know growing up, I've never seen Mom walk normally or run or, go run upstairs or anything, And to me, that's just always been very normal. And to her too. To her credit, it has not seemed to.
Yeah. Well, the more I think about it, the
down.
more just incredible it is, because you could have taken a whole lot of routes that could have gone.
Sure.
And there was also a time when I became just so indebted to Shell Oil Company, because I said, look, we can't live in Syracuse anymore, because she wouldn't have been able to go outside at all. There's so much snow and cold. And anyway, inside of 2 or 3 days, they offered me 3 positions.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
One in Florida, 2 in Southern California, and eventually Stockton, California.
Wow.
And for weather reasons, we chose Stockton. And in a matter of days, the moving truck was there, and Shell picked up every
I didn't know it happened that
cost.
fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sure that there are still some people on Bayberry Circle in Liverpool, New York, who are saying, you know who I haven't seen for a while? I haven't seen Peggy.
I'm going back there this summer. I'm going to go celebrate Mass at the church where I was baptized.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
That's a fun idea.
It's going to be cool. Yeah. All right, so we moved to California and lived there 9 years, I think, in California. And that was, I remember you were, coaching everything. You were in charge of the homeowners association.
Yeah, those were my best years, I think.
You peaked.
Well, and I was also working.
Yeah.
And if I say so myself, performing at a very high level.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
The California tour was terrific. So
then we moved to Houston, right. And that's and you've been there
30 plus years now.
Amazing.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be the typical 4-year kind of grooming, where they bring you in and you're an assistant to some business manager or something, and you learn a bit, and then I go back out, as a sales manager or a district manager. But that never happened. Then I got the best job in the whole world, and that was that would be my third. I was with Shell Oil, Shell Chemical, and then finally Pectin Chemicals, which was an overseas subsidiary. And that's where I did all the travel.
You got
and
to
went
move
to all
around
the
a lot,
countries.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, though I remember like in middle school and high school, you'd be gone for 10 days at a time or 12
14,
days.
15 was, was
yeah.
the standard. Yeah.
Well, that time I got a speeding ticket, you were in Saudi Arabia. I was very grateful because you just yelled at me over the phone. I appreciated that. I got to. So then retirement, right? So you retired, and I think this is important, like for people who listen to the show, like your faith came alive when you met Mom. That was a big step, and then like retiring was like a major from your faith standpoint.
Let me tell you a quick story. After a while of retiring, Peggy and I did a ton of traveling, coast to coast, visiting
You
where
played
our children
golf.
Played lots of golf. Had a couple of grandchildren, which then I said, I can't play golf anymore. I have to take care of these little guys.
You became the homeroom mom.
So what changed was, and here's the little story. When I was working and when I came to Houston, I often took the bus from Kingwood down to One Shell Plaza. And I would get on the bus, and there'd be 40 people on the bus, mostly guys. And so many of them would be sitting reading a book that after a while I recognized was the Bible. And I kept saying to myself, what is in there that all these guys are reading it? What is it?
That's so interesting. Yeah.
And then, I don't know, it certainly wasn't a few days later. It might have been a few months, might have been a year or so. I saw in our church bulletin, actually, I think we started with Matthew. And then I was in a Bible study every single moment that our church offered it, from Matthew to Revelation.
And you still are.
A little bit less because they've been doing a lot of Paul stuff.
Yeah.
And
you don't like Paul?
He's a nice enough guy, but
not as interesting as the Gospels.
Not at all. That was the difference. Plus, life changed in the sense of, Peggy's treatment. So I ended up missing a lot of sessions.
Yeah, you're taking Mom to appointments.
I've done some self-study, and that's when I got a little bit interested in Vatican II.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you about that. When I met Peggy and we went to church, almost immediately I began to see and feel the impact of Vatican II.
So Vatican II, Vatican II took place, Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 65. And you, during that time, you were kind of not in and
not
around.
Kind of not.
You were not.
Yeah.
And so then you meet Mom in 66, 67. So now the council's over. Some of those changes are starting to happen.
Place.
And now you're coming back.
Yeah, it's almost like from the first day. The first thing I noticed was that the communion rail was gone. I mean, that was a physical change.
Sure.
And there was way less Latin.
Uh-huh.
The Mass was now. And now, horrors of all, the priest had turned around and was now looking at me as he said the Mass.
And that was good or bad? Or like,
that in the end was good.
Okay.
It was just kind of, the communion rail thing still bothers me even today.
Yeah.
There was kind of a, I don't know, holiness or something about coming
reverence,
down the aisle, waiting your turn, spot opens up, you kneel down, and the priest goes down the aisle with the altar boy holding the paten under the chin, and then he came back and it was your turn, oh boy. And, and then it went out. So I have really missed that to this day. The other thing that kind of shocked me was the greeting. That was, the point in time, peace be with you.
Uh-huh.
And now people are well, if you go to a place like St. Martha's, people are hugging each other, and I'm thinking, ooh, this is what kind of church is this? Am I a holy roller now?
What was it like before? I mean, when you were a kid, there was you were just standing up and. So the priest would say, like, Dominus vobiscum, like but then that's it.
Did.
But then you didn't turn to other people and shake their
heavens,
hands.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
You kidding? No, that was pretty.
So
forward.
that's a big change.
The other change was the acceptance, if you will, of other religions. And just a quick story. There's a family. They were just the nicest people. 5 children, great athletes, the talk of the town. But they went to, I still don't know the church, Church of Christ.
This
Baptist
is in
Church.
Somerville, yeah.
And I used to get very upset thinking that the Gilberts are going to go to hell.
Because they weren't Catholic.
They weren't Catholic. And now that changed.
Where did that come? Like you heard that somewhere, or you just kind of picked that up? That non-Catholics cannot possibly be saved.
I heard it from the nuns. I heard it from the priests. I mean, it wasn't something I made up.
Sure.
Or casually read. That was a good thing. That was a good thing.
A change after the council. Yeah, that there was. I don't know, sort of an opening, if you will, to other faiths. Yeah.
The Mass, it changed drastically. Not drastically, but subtly over time. Most of it good. Not that anybody was asking permission of me to make these
Nobody
changes.
asked for your opinion on the big changes.
Said, don't bother with him. He doesn't even go to church anymore.
When you going to Mass and hearing it like in English, what was that like?
Well, the fact is, I actually knew the translation. And so even though I may have said it in what little Latin I knew, and that was just repetition, so that really had no great impact. I do miss the Latin music, particularly. There's a couple of Lenten songs that I'd love to hear more.
Well, you might like our Mass tonight.
Okay. I look forward to it.
We'll throw a little bit of that in there.
To it.
Okay, so then you have like raising 5 kids.
Wonderful children.
In the what was that like? I don't know, any like parenting advice for the dads out there?
I can't be that presumptuous.
It's hard work.
There were 2 things. The job required a lot of travel, and Peggy made that easy by her great care of the kids and just being supportive of this chosen profession, if you will.
So when you started having kids, Mom stayed home. You worked.
Yeah, but she only worked, shortly after we got married, and because
Marty
came
was
along
born
very fast.
Yeah.
In the same year that we were married. We were married in February. He was born
in December.
Yeah.
And then 11 months later, Carrie was born. We're not kidding around here.
The big feature was that you guys were good students, dedicated to school, kind.
Except Andy.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
And so that wasn't hard. I mean, we didn't have an alcoholic. We didn't have people, maybe you all took dope. I don't know. You covered it up very nicely.
I didn't. I can't speak for the others.
It was easy. I don't think we were fierce disciplinarians. I used to appreciate that when Annie would come home at 9 o'clock or midnight or something. They would be greeted by Mom, who would give them a big hug. Well, that was her sniff test.
Oh.
That was not done out of great affection. That was done out of where have you been and what have you been doing.
Yeah.
I think we were good parents. We were tough when it was needed, but not that often, quite honestly. You guys were just great. You made being a father easy. You made me look good.
Oh, nice. Well, and I know, there was definitely an emphasis on everybody was going to college. That was like, I don't remember.
Yeah, there was never any discussion other than.
You were doing that. And then always kind of, just an emphasis on, like, every night we didn't play like video games. We weren't watching a ton of, like, watching television at night was like a big deal because there was homework. And you used to say, I'd be like, I'm done. And you would say, well, don't you have any assignments for next week? And I'd be like, oh, Dad, but there was always that idea of like kind of working ahead. And then everybody goes to college. So we have a famous sort of, at least in our family, the back windshield. We have this, I forgot what kind of car it was, but you go to college and you like put your little sticker on the windshield. Well, between the five of us, we like went to a lot of different schools where you couldn't even see out the back windshield. Yeah. There was these stickers just everywhere. So when that car got sold, you like had
that's right too.
The back windshield is hanging in our living room or the upstairs
I took it to a salvage yard and said, I need a windshield for this car. Take off the one with all the stickers and put the new one on, and then sold the car eventually.
Hilarious.
And that still sits in our family room. It's of great pride. If I gave myself one credit, call myself the education father.
Yeah.
It's very hard to find somebody who has been to all of those very big and little schools. And you've done well. This was not my goal, but it turned out fine because they were so well educated and had really good jobs that they never came back home to live.
That was not the goal. But it
turned out.
One of the fruits.
And Peggy and I, we have blessed ourselves on a number of occasions.
That's so funny.
Isn't it nice that it's just the two of us?
That's so funny. Okay, so just back in our last few minutes, back to retirement. You've like used your retirement to really grow in your faith. I would say this: growing up, like Mom, similar to your family, like Mom was sort of the outwardly religious one. You were going to Mass,
like my mother.
Yes. Yeah. But then I think that's in some ways that's kind of switched a little. Like in Mom is still very a faithful Catholic, and we talk about church and everything. But like your faith has grown in retirement.
There were two things that happened. One, the Bible study had me kind of understanding the broadness and the complications, and generates a lot of questions. And it certainly helped my travel because, I in order to really sense the places that we were studying, I've been to Israel twice with a real emphasis on Jerusalem. Prior to that, no connection to anything. I had been to Medjugorje and the Lourdes and
some of those great
Knock.
pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been to Knock?
Yeah, sure.
Oh. Knock is in Ireland, yeah.
And so that helped the base. And then, and this is fairly recent, probably in the last year and a half, started going to Mass in the morning. Not 100%. Some weeks, 5 days. Some weeks, no days. And simply because of commitments. And it just was, it was like something just opened up and kept saying to myself, what a wonderful way to start the day.
Yeah.
Just go there and take out my Magnificant and listen and
follow
read.
along, yeah.
And so it's me and my 120 friends pretty much every day. That's, I don't want to use the word culmination, but it went from absolutely nothing to Mass. During retirement, I always went to Mass, but my life was my work at the time.
Sure.
I neglected my wife, I neglected my children, and I neglected my religion. But the retirement has just said, hey, I mean, I do a ton of other things.
Sure,
too.
Sure.
I'm not on my knees praying 24
Handy
hours
around
a day.
the house.
But that has really been more wonderful than I ever imagined. Then I began to understand that many of the people I knew in church who were doing that, I understood why they were doing it. Because you leave there, and it's a great way to start the day anyway.
Sure.
So
I love that.
So that's where I am now, and I hope I'm at least at this level over the next few years.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And then what's it like being a grandfather?
It used to be pretty cool until they grew up.
Because you were, especially like Colin and Katie were in Houston, and you were you were at their school all the time.
Yeah, that was our life.
And then you visited California and Pennsylvania were the other.
Yeah, no, we've gotten around. We're just not traveling much anymore. But all those kids are now, two of them be graduating from college this year.
Yeah.
There's a couple, three others that are in college. They don't have time for some grandfather, nobody's paying homage to the old people. But anyway, that was a wonderful time of life.
Sure.
That I wouldn't have traded for anything. Well, I gave up golf for it.
There it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I was never very good at it, but there was so many stories about the places that I played golf.
Oh, yeah.
Around the world.
Yeah. That's amazing
anyway,
stuff.
It's been a great life from the very beginning in our days in Somerville with our Irish and Italian friends to college. The absolute savior of my life was meeting Peggy. There was nothing that happened before or after that ever matched having her.
The difference
in my life
that made.
Yeah. She set such an example. It was like trying to be a nice guy all over again.
You had to fake it a little bit?
I still am.
I love it.
Yeah, no, she's the best.
I love it. Well, anyway, guys, that was like solid two episodes with my dad. When we started a podcast, who would have thought? And I love this trip sort of all just came together in the last month or so. And so I was like, oh, we gotta put him on the podcast and see what happens. So we're just going to, enjoy a couple days here. We're recording this kind of right in and around, today's All Souls Day and Bedlam this weekend. And so by the time you're listening to this, Bedlam will have been over. I'm sure OSU is going to win, let's say, 31-17. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But I'll be there. I'm going to be at the game. It's going to be awesome. But anyway, continue to join us. It's probably Advent by the time everyone is listening to this. So goodness, go to church, go to Mass. But anyway, Dad, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for the invite.
Great to have you. And we hope everybody has a great week out there. We're pretty excited for the future. Happy Advent, almost Merry Christmas, and we'll have Father Carey back next week.